Dajun stood at the docking bay entrance for the 18th time in 3 weeks, watching the Vrexian pirates trash his cargo containers. The tall, scaled creatures laughed as they kicked over another crate of medical supplies bound for the outer colonies. Their captain, Throck, sat on Doyun's loading ramp like it was a throne. Picking his teeth with what looked like a piece of stolen metal, the human cargo hauler took a slow breath and checked his datapad again. 17 formal complaints filed. 17 responses from station security saying they would look into it. 3 weeks of delays. 3 weeks of insults. 3 weeks of watching these pirates demand fees that didn't exist in any station charter he had ever read. "Hey, human," Throck called out in broken galactic common. "You bring payment today? Or you just stand there with stupid smile again?" Do-Yun did smile. He always smiled. It was what his mother taught him back on Earth. When someone is rude, you smile. When someone is difficult, you smile. When someone tests your patience, you smile and remember that most problems solve themselves if you give them time. "I've filed another complaint with station administration," Do-Yun said politely. "The administrator assures me this situation will be resolved through proper channels." The pirates burst into laughter. One of them, a smaller Vrexian with a scar across his snout, mimicked Do-Yun's voice. "Proper channels. Proper channels." The others howled with amusement. Across the docking bay, other merchants watched. A Centaurian trader whispered to his Quillari partner, "How does the human stay so calm? If they did this to me, I would have challenged them to combat by now." The Quillari shook her 4 arms nervously. "Humans are strange. They endure things that would drive us mad. I don't understand their patience." Myray, the human station administrator, approached Do-Yun with a concerned expression. She had been working at Station Meridian for 5 years and had seen her share of disputes, but this situation bothered her. The Vrexian pirates had been getting bolder, and station security seemed paralyzed by fear of them. "Do-Yun," she said quietly in Korean, so the pirates wouldn't understand. "Maybe you should just pay them something? I know it's not right, but it might be easier." Do-Yun shook his head, still smiling. "No, that would just teach them they can do this to others. Someone has to stand up for what's correct." Myray sighed. She knew that tone. Humans could be stubborn when they believed in something. "Just be careful, please." As she walked away, Throck stood up from the loading ramp. He swaggered over to Do-Yun, his clawed feet clicking on the metal deck. The pirate captain was nearly 7 feet tall, covered in green scales and scars from 100 fights. He leaned down until his face was inches from Do-Yun's. "You know what I think, little human? I think you are a coward. Big, tough Earth species. Everyone talks about how dangerous you are, but you just file papers and smile." He jabbed a claw into Do-Yun's chest, not hard enough to injure, but enough to be insulting. "Maybe I should teach you respect." Do-Yun's smile didn't waver. "I respect you just fine, Captain Throck. I respect everyone. I just want to do my job and deliver medicine to people who need it." "Medicine." Throck spat on the ground. "You deliver boxes. I am pirate. I take what I want. This is way of strong." He turned to his crew. "Search his ship again. Maybe we missed something valuable." The pirates rushed into Do-Yun's ship, and the human herd crashes from inside. He closed his eyes briefly, counting to 10 in his head. This was fine. Everything was fine. Things could be replaced. Patience was the answer. His grandmother always said that patient people win in the end. 20 minutes later, the pirates emerged carrying various items from his personal quarters. Tools, a spare jacket, some books. One pirate held up a framed photograph of Do-Yun's family back on Earth. His parents, his sister, his nephew. "What is this?" The pirate sneered. Your family? They look weak like you. The pirate tossed the frame carelessly. It hit the deck, and the glass shattered. The photograph fluttered out, and the same pirate deliberately stepped on it, grinding it under his boot while laughing. Something changed in the air. Several nearby aliens suddenly looked up, their various sensory organs detecting a shift they couldn't quite name. The Centaurian trader grabbed his partner's arm. We should go. Why? The Quillari asked. Just trust me. Now. Do-Yun stood very still. He looked at his family photo on the ground, his mother's smile visible under the pirate's boot. He set down his datapad with careful precision. He took a deep breath, the kind of breath someone takes before diving into deep water. His smile finally faded. Now I'm actually getting annoyed, Do-Yun said quietly. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every single alien within hearing distance stopped what they were doing. The Centaurian trader yanked his partner away from the docking bay. A maintenance crew of small, furry battalions dropped their tools and scattered. Even the station's automated systems seemed to react. As warning lights began flashing in the corridor, Myray, who had been halfway across the bay, turned pale and immediately activated her communication device. This is Administrator Myray. All personnel evacuate Docking Bay 7. Repeat, evacuate Docking Bay 7 immediately. Human patience threshold has been breached. The pirates looked around in confusion. Throck laughed, though it sounded uncertain. What is happening? Why everyone run from words? One of his crew members, slightly more educated than the others, tugged on his captain's arm. Captain, I heard stories. When humans say this phrase, stories, Throck slapped the crewman's hand away. Stupid stories. Look at him. He is one small human. We are 12 warriors. But even as he said it, he noticed that the human had begun rolling up his sleeves with methodical, unhurried movements. Do-Yun picked up the photograph of his family, brushing it off gently. He tucked it carefully into his pocket. Then he looked at Captain Throck with eyes that held no anger, no rage, no emotion at all. Just cold, patient calculation. 3 weeks, Do-Yun said, his voice conversational. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. I know which ship is yours. I know where your power cores are located. I know which of your crew members has a weak left knee from an old injury. I know your patrol patterns, your guard rotations, and exactly how many seconds it takes for station security to respond to an emergency call in this sector. He took 1 step forward. The pirates took 1 step back. I've been patient, Do-Yun continued. I've been polite. I've followed every rule. But you know what? I'm done being patient now. The last alien observers fled the docking bay. Myray sealed the blast doors from the outside. In the station security office, guards watched through cameras, none of them brave enough to intervene. They had all attended the mandatory training sessions about human behavior. They knew what came after patience ended. Captain Throck tried to recover his bravado. You think you scare me? We are. He didn't get to finish. Do-Yun moved. 200 years before Do-Yun rolled up his sleeves in Docking Bay 7, a Centaurian historian named Krell sat in the newly established Galactic Council archives, documenting the strangest phenomenon he had encountered in his 40 years of scholarship. The humans had been part of the galactic community for only 15 years, and already they were the subject of more incident reports than any species in recent memory. But what puzzled Krell was not that humans were violent. Many species were violent. What puzzled him was the pattern. He pulled up file after file on his display screen. Each incident followed the same strange sequence. Humans would endure provocation for extended periods. They would file complaints, send diplomatic messages, and attempt peaceful resolution through every available channel. They would smile and remain courteous even when insulted. Then suddenly, something would shift, and the humans would respond with such overwhelming precision that it left other species traumatized. "I don't understand it," Krell muttered to his assistant, a young Quillari scholar named Vex. "Look at this." The mining colony on Kepler 442b. They were harassed by Skeldon raiders for 6 standard months. 6 months! Any other species would have responded with violence after 6 days. Vex leaned closer to the screen with 2 of her 4 eyes. What happened after 6 months? Krell pulled up the report. The colony leader, a human named Jiwan, sent 47 diplomatic messages requesting peaceful resolution. All were ignored. The Skeldons seemed to think human patience was weakness. They escalated their raids, stealing equipment, destroying property. Then they made a mistake. What mistake? They kidnapped 3 human children, took them as trophies to display their dominance. Krell shook his head. Jiwan sent one final message. Just 6 words in Galactic Common. "We're actually getting annoyed now." Vex made a clicking sound of confusion. "That's all? Just annoyed? Not angry? Not threatening war?" That's what the Skeldons thought too. They laughed at the message, called it weak posturing. Krell brought up the next series of files. 72 hours later, the entire Skeldon raiding fleet had been systematically dismantled. Not destroyed, dismantled. Every ship disabled with precise strikes to power systems. Every raider captured without a single death. The children were recovered unharmed. But how? The Skeldons had military-grade vessels. The mining colony was just civilians. Krell displayed tactical footage from the engagement. It showed human miners using improvised weapons and mining equipment with terrifying efficiency. They had clearly planned every move, mapped every weakness in the Skeldon ships, and executed their counterattack with military precision. "This is what I don't understand," Krell said. "These were not soldiers. They were miners, engineers, families, yet they fought like elite special forces." He pulled up an interview with one of the captured Skeldon raiders. Listen to what this one says. The recording played. The Skeldon's voice was shaky, traumatized. They didn't fight like warriors. They fought like demons. Cold demons. They knew everything about our ships, our weapons, our tactics. It was like they had been studying us the whole time, just waiting. We thought their patience meant they were afraid. We were so wrong. Vex shuddered with all 4 arms. They were watching and learning. "Exactly," Krell said. While the humans endured, they were gathering information, planning, preparing. Their patience wasn't passivity. It was strategy. He pulled up more files. The pattern repeated across dozens of incidents. Humans on a diplomatic station, enduring insults for months, then systematically exposing a corruption network that had operated for decades. Human traders being extorted, documenting everything, then triggering a coordinated legal takedown of an entire criminal organization. Human colonists peacefully coexisting with aggressive neighbors, keeping detailed records, then presenting such overwhelming evidence of violations that the Galactic Council had no choice but to intervene. "I need to understand their psychology," Krell said. "Request an interview with one of the human diplomats. I want to know why they do this." 3 days later, a human diplomat named Hyunwoo sat across from Krell in the archives. The human was young by his species standards, probably in his 30s, with an easy smile that Krell had learned was a constant feature of human expression. "Thank you for meeting with me," Krell said. "I've been studying incidents involving your species, and I'm trying to understand something. Why do humans wait so long before responding to provocations? Other species would react immediately." Hyunwoo nodded thoughtfully. "It's how we evolved, I think. Earth is what we call a death world. Everything there is trying to kill you. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, natural disasters. We learned early that immediate violent response wasn't always the best survival strategy. Can you explain? Sure. Imagine you're an early human on Earth, and you encounter a large predator. If you attack immediately, you might win, but you might also die or get injured badly. But if you stay calm, back away slowly, and remember where the predator hunts, you can avoid it next time. You survive by being patient and smart, not by being aggressive. Krell made notes rapidly. So patience is a survival trait for your species. Yes, but it's more than that. Hyun-woo leaned forward. We also evolved as social creatures who had to cooperate to survive. If someone in your tribe made you angry and you immediately attacked them, the tribe would fall apart. So we developed ways to manage frustration, to give second chances, to hope for peaceful resolution. But you do eventually respond, Krell pointed out. And when you do, it's very effective. Hyun-woo's smile faded slightly. That's the other part? When patience and diplomacy fail, when we realize that peace isn't possible, we've already spent that whole time observing and preparing. We know our enemy. We've studied their weaknesses. We've planned multiple approaches. So when we finally act, we act decisively. The Skeldons called your people patient demons. I heard that, Hyun-woo said quietly. It's not a name we're proud of. We genuinely prefer peace. Every time we endure an insult or an injury, we're hoping that the other side will recognize the opportunity we're giving them to back down. We're hoping we won't have to fight. Krell studied the human carefully. But you're always ready to fight if necessary. Yes, we learned that lesson hard on Earth. Patience doesn't mean helplessness. It means giving peace every possible chance before accepting that violence is necessary. Over the following weeks, Krell compiled his findings into a report that would become foundational text for xenopsychology students across the galaxy. He titled it, The Human Escalation Ladder, Understanding Patience as Both Shield and Weapon. In his conclusion, he wrote, Humans possess an extraordinary capacity to endure provocation without immediate retaliation. This should not be mistaken for weakness or passivity. Human patience is an active process during which they assess, document, and prepare for all possible outcomes. Other species display aggression as a warning to deter conflict. Humans suppress aggression as a gift, offering repeated chances for peaceful resolution. When this gift is rejected and human patience finally expires, the response is not hot anger, but cold precision. They have already won the conflict in their minds, long before the first blow is struck. The report was distributed to all Galactic Council member species with a simple recommendation. When a human tells you they are getting annoyed, treat it as a final warning. They have already given you more chances than most species would consider reasonable. What comes next is not their fault. It is yours. Krell sent a copy to Hyun-woo. The human diplomat sent back a short message, accurate and fair. Though I hope your report helps prevent conflicts rather than just explain them afterward. We really do prefer peace. That message, Krell thought, was perhaps the most human thing he had encountered. Even when being studied like potentially dangerous creatures, they remained hopeful that understanding would lead to friendship rather than fear. He added the message to the archive file, certain that future historians would need to understand this paradox. Humans were dangerous precisely because they so desperately wanted to be kind. Instructor Velanoth stood before the assembled cadets of the Galactic Military Academy with all four of his arms crossed, a sign of serious attention in Quillari body language. The classroom held 47 young beings from 23 different species, all training to serve in various security and diplomatic roles across the galaxy. This particular course was mandatory for every single one of them. Welcome to Xenopsychology 301, Recognizing Human Warning Protocols, Velanoth announced. Before anyone complains that this is an entire course dedicated to one species, let me be clear. More conflicts, injuries, and diplomatic incidents occur from misunderstanding human behavior than from any other cause in modern galactic society. This course might save your life. A battalion cadet raised one small, furry paw. Instructor, why is one species so difficult to understand? We study basic psychology for all member species in first-year courses. Velinoth activated his display screen, showing a complex chart. Because humans operate on what we call an inverted aggression model. Most species, including my own, display aggression early as a deterrent. We puff up, we growl, we show weapons, we make threats. This signals danger and usually prevents actual violence. Humans do the opposite. He pulled up a video of a human smiling while someone insulted them. This is a human experiencing what they call moderate irritation. Note the smile. In most contexts, smiles indicate happiness or friendliness. In humans, a smile can mean dozens of different things, including a mask for frustration. A Centaurian cadet spoke up. So humans lie with their faces? Not exactly, Velinoth said. They're being polite. Human society places enormous value on courtesy and giving others chances to correct their behavior. They smiled because they're hoping the situation will resolve itself without conflict. He changed the display to show a list. This is what we call the human escalation ladder. It shows the phrases humans commonly use and what they actually mean. Let's start at the bottom, the safest level. The list appeared. It's fine equals it's not fine. But I'm not upset yet. I'm fine equals I'm starting to get frustrated, whatever, equals I'm frustrated but don't want to argue, do what you want, equals I strongly disagree but am choosing not to fight. You know what? Equals you've pushed me very far. I'm getting annoyed, equals final warning. Leave immediately. Now I'm actually annoyed, equals evacuate the area A. Young human cadet named Sumin raised her hand, looking embarrassed. Instructor, this makes us sound really passive-aggressive. Velinoth gestured to her with two arms, a sign of respect. Not at all, Cadet Sumin. What humans call being polite, we recognize as extraordinary patience. Your species gives more warnings and more chances than any other sentient race we've encountered. The problem is that other species don't recognize these as warnings. He pulled up a tactical recording from a mining colony incident decades ago. Watch this carefully. This is footage from the Kepler 442b situation that's now taught in every military academy in the galaxy. The cadets watched as human miners went about their work while raiders harassed them. Day after day of provocations. The humans remained calm, filed reports, sent messages. Then came the shift, the moment when a human colony leader said those specific words. We're actually getting annoyed now. Notice the change in the raiders' behavior? Velinoth paused the video. They laugh. They dismiss it. They don't understand that this human just told them, in the clearest language her culture has, that violence is now inevitable. He played the next section, showing the systematic dismantling of the raiding fleet by miners using improvised weapons. The cadets watched in stunned silence as civilians executed military-level tactics with frightening precision. How? A Skeldon cadet asked, his scales rippling with distress. They're not soldiers. That's what your species thought too, Velinoth said gently. The Skeldons who participated in these raids were traumatized. Some still refuse to enter sectors where humans live. Let me explain what happened during those 6 months of patience. He brought up analysis data. While the humans endured harassment, they were documenting everything. Ship movements, weapon capabilities, personnel patterns, tactical weaknesses. They were running simulations. Humans have remarkable capacity for something they call contingency planning. Even while hoping for peace, they prepare for war. Sumin spoke again. It's because we really don't want to fight. So we spend that time figuring out how to end it quickly if we have to. Exactly, Velanoth said. Human aggression, when it finally emerges, is not hot emotion. It's cold calculation. You've already won in your minds before you throw the first punch. He pulled up medical data. Here's another fascinating aspect. Human stress hormones. When most species face immediate threat, we get an adrenaline surge that makes us fight or flee. Humans have the same response, but they've evolved an extraordinary ability to suppress it through conscious will. They can stay calm while their bodies prepare for action. This means when they finally do act, they're not panicked or sloppy. They're focused. A Centaurian cadet raised a concern. Instructor, this makes humans sound extremely dangerous. Should we be afraid of them? Velanoth lowered all 4 arms in a gesture of reassurance. No, you should be respectful of them. The entire point of this course is to help you understand that humans give you many, many opportunities to avoid conflict. They genuinely prefer peace. They will endure insult, inconvenience, and even some degree of harm before responding with violence. No other species is this patient. He turned to Sumin. Cadet, would you be willing to participate in a demonstration? Sumin nodded and came to the front of the classroom. Velanoth addressed the class. For the next 5 minutes, I want volunteers to come up and say mildly insulting things to Cadet Sumin. Nothing too severe, remember. She's your classmate. But things that would normally provoke a response. Cadet Sumin, please react as you naturally would. For 5 minutes, various cadets came up and delivered insults. They criticized her uniform, her test scores, her species, her appearance. Sumin stood there with a polite smile, occasionally saying, "It's fine," or "whatever you think." The other cadets began to look uncomfortable. The Battalion cadet whispered to her neighbor, "Why isn't she angry? If someone said those things to me, I would have challenged them already." After 5 minutes, Velanoth asked Sumin, "How do you feel right now?" "Honestly?" "Pretty annoyed," Sumin said, maintaining her smile. "And what are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about which of them I could beat in hand-to-hand combat, and how I would do it. I'm thinking about their weak points. I'm thinking about things I could say that would really hurt their feelings if I wanted to. But I'm hoping I don't have to do any of that, because they're my friends, and I know they're just following instructions." Velanoth turned to the class. This is the human mind during patience, analysis, planning, hoping for peace but preparing for conflict. Now, Cadet Sumin, please say the phrase. Sumin took a breath and said clearly, "Okay, I'm annoyed now." Velanoth immediately activated an alarm. Exercise complete. All cadets who participated in insults, apologize immediately. The cadets rushed to apologize, and Sumin laughed, accepting them gracefully. But the point was made. When a human said those words, wise beings listened. For the rest of the session, Velanoth taught them the proper responses to human warning phrases. Listen to their concerns. Acknowledge their patience. Stop the provocative behavior immediately. Give them space and time to calm down. Offer sincere apologies. And most importantly, recognize that if a human has reached the point of saying they're annoyed, they've already given you far more chances than you probably deserved. Remember, Velanoth concluded, humans are not your enemies. They're some of the most loyal, patient, and cooperative beings in the galaxy. But loyalty, patience, and cooperation all have limits. Respect those limits. Appreciate the warnings they give you. And never, ever assume that human politeness means human weakness. The class ended, but Sumin stayed behind. Instructor, does it bother you? Teaching a whole course about how potentially dangerous my species is? Velanoth's mandibles formed what his species used as a smile. Not at all, cadet. I teach this course because I respect humans. You could hurt us easily, but you choose not to. You give us chances. You hope for the best in us. That's not dangerous. That's noble. I just want to make sure the rest of the galaxy appreciates the gift of your patience." Sumin smiled, a genuine one this time. "Thank you, instructor." As she left, Velanoth updated his course files. Another class taught, another group of young beings who now understood. Perhaps one day, this course wouldn't be necessary. Perhaps one day, everyone would just treat each other with the respect and patience that humans offered so freely. Until then, he would keep teaching, keep explaining, and keep hoping that understanding would prevent the conflicts that ignorance created. The security feeds from Docking Bay 7 would later become training material for 3 different galactic institutions, though the actual footage was carefully edited to remove the most graphic 7 minutes. What remained showed enough to make the point. Myray watched from the sealed observation deck as the situation unfolded with terrifying speed. She had triggered every alarm, sent emergency notifications to the station director, and contacted human protocol specialists. But there was nothing anyone could do now, except wait for it to end. The first pirate went down in less than 3 seconds. Dajun moved with the kind of efficiency that comes from extensive planning. The Vrexian didn't even see the strike coming before he was on the ground. His weapons scattered across the deck. Captain Throck roared and charged forward, but Do-Yun was no longer where he had been standing. The human moved like water, flowing around the captain's clumsy attack and striking precisely at the weak point in Vrexian anatomy, the nerve cluster just below the left arm. Throck collapsed to his knees, gasping. The other pirates hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Do-Yun was already in motion. He moved through them like a surgeon, each strike calculated to disable without killing. A pressure point here, a joint lock there, a careful blow to stun. He used their own weapons against them, but not in the way they expected. He didn't fire energy weapons or swing blades. He used them as tools to trip, to block, to leverage his opponents off balance. 4 minutes in, half the pirates were restrained with their own equipment. Do-Yun had used their belts, their cables, their own clothing to bind them. The remaining pirates tried to flee to their ship, but the human had already disabled the boarding ramp during the first 90 seconds of the encounter. 6 minutes in, only Captain Throck remained standing, and even he was barely upright. Do-Yun approached him with that same calm expression, that same methodical patience he had shown for 3 weeks. But now the patience was in his actions, in the way he avoided causing permanent injury, even while completely dominating the fight. "You spent 3 weeks studying my ship," Do-Yun said quietly. "I spent 3 weeks studying yours. I know exactly where your power core is located. I know your life support systems run on a circuit that can be accessed from the external panel near your cargo bay. I know which of your crew members would actually fight and which would surrender if you weren't there to intimidate them." He picked up a length of cable and began walking toward Throck. "I know all of this because, while you were being a bully, I was being patient. And patient people have time to learn everything they need to know." 7 minutes after the confrontation began, Do-Yun walked out of Docking Bay 7. Behind him, 12 Vrexian pirates were efficiently bound and arranged in a neat row. Captain Throck was tied to his own ship's mast with a sign around his neck written in Galactic Common, "Please arrest me. I have learned my lesson." Do-Yun's shirt was slightly torn, and he had a small cut on his cheek. But otherwise he looked exactly as he had before. Calm, composed. His hands weren't even shaking. Myray ran up to him, her medical scanner already out. "Do-Yun, are you hurt?" "Should I call medical?" "I'm fine," Do-Yun said, and this time when he said it, he actually meant it. "Just a scratch. Is station security ready to process them?" Security forces were indeed ready, though they had waited until the situation was clearly over before entering. They approached the docking bay with extreme caution, as if the bound pirates might still be dangerous. Another human cargo hauler named June arrived, having heard the emergency alerts. He took one look at the situation and immediately understood. He walked up to Do Yun carrying 2 cups of coffee from the station cafeteria. "Hey," June said softly, offering 1 cup. "Rough day?" Do Yun accepted the coffee and took a long sip. His hands trembled slightly now, the adrenaline finally catching up with him. "I really tried to handle it peacefully." "I know you did. Everyone knows you did. 3 weeks is longer than most humans would have waited." June guided him to a nearby bench, away from the commotion. "Just breathe for a minute." This was standard post-incident protocol for humans. After the cold calculation came the emotional release. Do-yoon sat quietly, drinking his coffee, while June stayed beside him in companionable silence. No judgment, no questions, just presence. On the observation deck, a Centauran merchant, who had watched the entire event, turned to his Quillari partner with wide eyes. "Did you see that?" He apologized. After defeating 12 armed pirates, he apologized for not handling it peacefully. The Quillari nodded slowly. That's what the instructor said in the academy course. Humans genuinely regret violence, even when it's necessary. They see it as a failure of their patience, not a victory of their strength. Myray coordinated with station security to process the pirates. The Vrexians were actually relieved to be arrested, begging to be taken to cells far away from the human. One of them kept repeating, "He knew everything." How did he know everything? A security officer who had taken Velanoth Iscourse at the academy explained, "He was watching you for 3 weeks." Humans observe. They learn. They prepare. You gave him plenty of time. Station Director Kix, a massive crystalline being who normally remained in her office, personally came to Docking Bay 7. She examined the scene with her multifaceted eyes, taking in every detail. Then she approached Do-Yun, who stood up respectfully. "Cargo hauler Do-Yun," Director Kix said in her resonant voice, "I have reviewed your 17 formal complaints. I apologize that our security forces did not address this situation sooner. You showed remarkable restraint." Do-Yun bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. "Thank you, Director. I understand security was concerned about escalating the situation. I just wanted to do my job." "Yes, about that." Director Kix turned to face the gathered crowd of merchants and station personnel who had slowly returned to the area. "Let it be known that the Vrexian pirates are banned from Station Meridian permanently. Furthermore, any individual or group who harasses merchants in violation of station regulations will face immediate deportation. We have been too tolerant of such behavior." She looked directly at several other troublemakers in the crowd, species who had been engaging in similar tactics of intimidation and extortion. They suddenly found their feat very interesting to look at. "This human gave these pirates 3 weeks of patience," Director Kix continued. 3 weeks of second chances. 3 weeks more than they deserved. Let this be a lesson. Human patience is a gift. Do not mistake it for weakness. Over the next few hours, the entire atmosphere of Station Meridian changed. Suddenly, all the minor conflicts, all the small cases of bullying and intimidation, all the merchants who had been quietly suffering under various threats, they all found resolution. Because nobody wanted to be the next one to discover where human patience ended. Do-Yin returned to his ship and finally began loading his cargo of medical supplies. Other merchants came by to help, offering assistance and respect. The Centaurian trader, who had watched everything, approached hesitantly. "Excuse me," he said. "I wanted to apologize. I watched you endure their harassment for weeks, and I did nothing. I thought you were just being passive. I didn't understand that you were giving them chances to stop. Doyun smiled a genuine smile this time. It's okay, really. I know human behavior seems strange to other species. We're working on communication. Will you be staying on the station? The Centaurian asked. I heard your medical supplies are urgently needed at the outer colonies. I'm leaving in about an hour, Doyan confirmed. 3 weeks behind schedule, but better late than never. As his ship departed Station Meridian several hours later, Doyun looked back at the station through his viewport. He felt tired and a bit sad. Violence always made him sad, even necessary violence. Even when he had tried everything else first. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Patience is a virtue. But even virtues have their limits. He pulled out the photograph of his family, now back in its frame with new glass that Myray had helped him find. He placed it carefully on his control panel where he could see it. Then he set course for the outer colonies, where people were waiting for medicine that was 3 weeks late, but still desperately needed. Behind him, Station Meridian was a more peaceful place. Word spread quickly through the station's communication networks and beyond. In cantinas and shops, in loading bays and residential areas, beings from dozens of species shared the story. They talked about the human who had smiled for 3 weeks straight while being harassed, who had filed 17 complaints, who had given chance after chance, and who had finally said the words that everyone now knew to fear. And in the stations and colonies and ships across that entire sector of space, troublemakers reconsidered their actions. Bullies thought twice before targeting merchants. Pirates looked for easier prey, because nobody wanted to hear a human say, "Now I'm actually getting annoyed." Patience, they learned, was not weakness. It was the luxury of strength that chose not to be used, until it had to be. The Galactic Council Chamber was built to impress, with its vast dome showing the stars above and seats arranged in concentric circles for representatives from 243 member species. Today, the chamber was packed beyond capacity. The subject of debate was simple but contentious. Were humans too dangerous to be trusted with expanded roles in galactic security and diplomacy? Ambassador Yuna stood at the central podium, representing Earth and its colonies. She was not a large woman by human standards, barely 5.5 feet tall, but she held the attention of thousands of beings with calm authority. Honored council members, she began in perfect galactic common. I've been listening to this debate for 3 days now. I've heard humans described as unpredictable, as violent, as dangerous. I've heard calls for restrictions on human population growth in mixed species stations. I've heard proposals that humans should be required to wear indicators of their emotional state so others can avoid us when we're getting annoyed. A ripple of embarrassed murmurs went through the chamber. When she said it out loud like that, some of the proposals did sound rather extreme. I want to address these concerns directly, Yuna continued. But first, let me tell you about Earth. She activated the massive holographic display behind her. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. Beautiful and terrible scenes play across the screen. Hurricanes that could flatten cities. Earthquakes that split the ground. Volcanoes that buried entire regions in ash. Predators with claws and teeth and venom. Winters that could freeze a being solid in minutes. This is our home world, Yuna said. By galactic standards, it's classified as a level 9 death world. Only 3 other member species come from planets rated this dangerous. We evolved in an environment where everything was trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, the diseases, everything. She changed the display to show early humans huddled in caves, hiding from predators. Our ancestors survived not by being the strongest or the fastest or the most venomous. They survived by being patient, by observing, by learning, by working together, by outlasting threats rather than confronting them directly. The images shifted to show humans enduring a blizzard, waiting out a storm, avoiding a predator by staying still and quiet for hours. We learned patience as a survival mechanism, Una explained. And that patience became part of our culture, our psychology, our very nature. We give second chances because our ancestors survived by recognizing that most threats pass if you just wait them out. We smile when we're frustrated because our ancestors survived by not showing aggression that might trigger a predator's attack. She pulled up comparative data. Let me show you something interesting. In the past 50 years of galactic history, humans have been involved in 147 documented conflicts. That sounds like a lot until you realize that Centaurians have been involved in over 1,000, Skeldons in 800, and Koilari in 600. We're not uniquely violent. Actually, we're involved in far fewer conflicts than most species. Counselor Zephrix, a senior representative from the Centaurian worlds, spoke up. But Ambassador, when humans are involved in conflicts, the results are more severe, more traumatizing to the other parties involved. That's true, Una acknowledged. And do you know why? Because by the time we fight, we've already exhausted every alternative. We've tried diplomacy, negotiation, mediation, arbitration, and patient endurance. We fight only as a last resort, which means we fight to end the conflict decisively. We don't fight as a warning or a deterrent. We fight to finish it. She brought up footage of the Station Meridian incident involving Do Yun. Many in the chamber had already seen it. This human cargo hauler filed 17 formal complaints. He waited 3 weeks. He remained polite and professional while being harassed, insulted, and having his property destroyed. He gave those pirates 17 chances to stop their behavior. The footage showed the pirates laughing at Do Yun, dismissing his patience as weakness. When he finally responded, yes, it was effective. Yes, it was overwhelming. But it was also measured. Notice that he didn't kill anyone. He didn't cause permanent injury. He disabled threats and restrained aggressors using exactly the amount of force necessary. If any other species had endured 3 weeks of such treatment, there would have been bloodshed much sooner. Counselor Zephrix considered this. So you're saying human violence is actually more restrained than ours? I'm saying human violence is the end result of exhausted patience. It's what happens when every peaceful option has failed. Una gestured to the data displays. Look at the numbers. In conflicts involving humans, the mortality rate is actually lower than galactic average. Permanent injury rates are lower. Civilian casualties are lower. Why? Because humans spend so much time trying to avoid violence that when it becomes necessary, they've already planned how to minimize harm. A Battalion counselor spoke in a small, trembling voice. But Ambassador, the phrase, when humans say they're getting annoyed, everyone runs. That seems like you're threatening us. Una's expression softened. No, counselor. That phrase is not a threat. It's a warning. It's us telling you that we've reached the end of our patience, and we really, really don't want to fight. It's a final chance for peace. It's us saying, please stop now, because I don't want what comes next. She pulled up linguistic analysis. In human languages, we have over 50 different words and phrases to express frustration, irritation, and annoyance. Each one is a step on a very long ladder. By the time we say we're actually getting annoyed, we've already climbed past dozens of smaller warnings. We've given you so many opportunities to recognize that you're pushing too far. The chamber was quiet now, beings considering this perspective. I want to propose something, Una said. Instead of restricting human participation in galactic society, let's expand education about human psychology. Let's make xenopsychology courses mandatory for all beings working in mixed species environments. Let's teach people to recognize the gifts that human patience offers. She displayed Velenoth's human escalation ladder, the teaching tool now used across the galaxy. We're not hiding our nature. We're not pretending to be something we're not. We're openly telling you exactly how we work. We're explaining our warnings. We're showing you the signs. All we ask is that you learn to recognize them. Counselor Zephrix spoke again, his voice thoughtful. Ambassador, I owe you an apology. I've been thinking of human patience as a deception, as if you're hiding your aggression. But it's not that at all, is it? You're genuinely hoping for peace every single time. Yes, Una said simply. Every single time. Even when we've been hurt. Even when we've been wronged. We always hope that this time, understanding will win. Over the next week, the Galactic Council debated and eventually passed the Human Understanding Initiative. It mandated education programs across all member worlds, established clear protocols for recognizing human warning signs, and created support systems for humans dealing with post-conflict stress. Because, as Una had pointed out, humans felt bad about violence, even when it was necessary. The initiative also formally recognized human patience thresholds as valid diplomatic warnings with legal standing. If a human told you they were getting annoyed and you continued your behavior, you could be held legally responsible for the resulting conflict. But perhaps more importantly, the initiative changed how other species viewed humans. Fear began to shift into respect and understanding. Beings stopped seeing human patience as weakness and started recognizing it as extraordinary. Self-control. On Station Meridian. Do-Hyun returned from his delayed medical supply run to find his docking bay decorated with gifts and messages of appreciation. Merchants he barely knew had left tokens of respect. The station director had personally upgraded his docking privileges. And there was a message from the Centaurian trader he had helped, inviting him to dinner to make up for not supporting him during the pirate incident. Myray visited him at his ship. You've become famous, you know. People are calling you the face of human patience. Do-Hyun laughed, slightly embarrassed. I was just trying to do my job. I know. That's what makes it meaningful. She handed him a data chip. This is from Ambassador Una. She used your incident as an example in her presentation to the Galactic Council. She wanted you to know that your patience and your eventual response helped change galactic policy for the better. Do-Hyun took the chip and watched the recording of Una's speech. When it finished, he felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride that his restraint had been recognized. Sadness that violence had been necessary. Hope that maybe things would be better going forward. Across the galaxy, the changes rippled outward. In trading stations and colonies, in ships and diplomatic posts, beings began treating each other with more care. Because they had learned something valuable. Kindness deserved kindness in return. And patience deserved respect. On a distant outpost near the galactic rim, a young Quillari merchant named Vess was being harassed by a group of thugs. They had been extorting protection money from her for 2 months. She had filed complaints that went nowhere. She had tried reasoning with them. She had been patient far beyond what her species normally managed.